And we still talk about that speech from Jason Kelce to this day. So it's a nice long party weekend for Philly. So let's look at the playoff bracket and how it all played out. The Eagles rolled through the Commanders in the NFC Championship to punch their ticket to the big game. Meanwhile, the Chiefs beating Josh Allen and the Bills once again to get to the Super Bowl. Ultimately, the Eagles block Kansas City of that three-peat, winning Super Bowl 59, 40-22. So let's look at the teams who missed the playoffs and those who have the best odds to win Super Bowl 60 among that group. The Niners are at the top of it with 15-1 odds. Super Bowl 60 is in Santa Clara, so you know they would probably love to win in their hometown. The Bengals started slow, got things clicking kind of a little bit too late, but they're in the mix there among the teams who did not make the playoffs at 18-1. Then we have the Bears, the Dolphins, the Cardinals, the Seahawks, the Cowboys are in there, and Atlanta as well. And we're going to go down this list with Will Brinson and Tyler Sullivan and talk about all of these teams and potentially what that could look like for them to win Super Bowl 60. Gentlemen, we're going to start at the top there with the Niners, who have the best odds, maybe a little bit of a Super Bowl hangover from last season, mixed in with some injuries, didn't really go their way. Also, the recent news, they're giving Debo permission to seek a trade. Will, what is the pathway for them look like to get back to a Super Bowl?
Well, you know, man, look, the Niners have a really talented roster. I think, for one, they got to get a little bit lucky in terms of health. And we've seen over the course of the NFL, you know, the NFL, injury luck is a real thing. You can see some variance year to year with luck. And I think some regression to the mean for the 49ers in terms of injuries, like just get healthier and don't deal with as many injuries as they did last year. Get a healthy Brandon Ayuk, get a healthy Christian McCaffrey. You're going to have to pay Brock Purdy this offseason, which is going to change the calculus for their, you know, for their salary cap stuff. But you need Trent Williams to be there in full as well. I think all of that happens. You maybe get some defensive regression in terms of positive injuries there. You know, Dre Greenlaw, we injured him during the Super Bowl. You need everybody to be healthy, and then you can make a run. This team is certainly talented enough to do it, but the window is closing with Brock Purdy having to get paid.
Brinson, I gotta ask, do you have a dog?
Yes, there's a dog behind me.
Okay, because we're like,
yesterday.
We see some pillows.
Yeah, the pillows are
happening behind you.
I can hear y'all giggling, and I assumed it was the dog. After Jacqueline, I don't know if you know this, Jacqueline, but yesterday when you said, where are the deer heads behind you, there was actually a dog head sitting right behind you.
I definitely missed that, but I'm glad that he's joined the programming.
Well, like someone's in his bed right now. That is
it's a dog. We can confirm.
Okay, we've confirmed it's a dog. We're going to move on now. Let's talk about the Bengals now, okay? They were off to a slow start this season, something we've seen a few times, right, Jacqueline, time and time again with Cincy. Now, regardless of missing the playoffs, Joe Burrow was in the MVP conversation.
Yeah.
You know, he's always kind of making himself known in that conversation. Tyler, what does Cincy need to address if they want to get back to the Super Bowl?
Right, and you referenced it. When you have Joe Burrow on your roster, you're always going to be in that Super Bowl conversation. I mean, because they missed the playoffs, we're going to just completely forget about this incredible season that he just had, leading the NFL in completions, passing yards, touchdowns. He threw 9 picks. He was absolutely ridiculous, and as you referenced, in the MVP conversation, one comeback player of the year. But for them to get back to the Super Bowl, which he has been able to lead them to earlier in his career, to me, it all starts with the defense. They have the 9th most cap space currently in the NFL right now. But boy, you look at those numbers there. They were horrible on defense in 2024. Trey Hendrickson, really the only respectable player on that defense. And to me, that's where kind of the rubber meets the road. A lot of the conversation around the Cincinnati Bengals this offseason is going to surround T. Higgins. And if they can keep that core of Burrow, Higgins, and Chase together going forward, if I'm the Cincinnati Bengals, I kind of take a step back and say, all right, as much as we would love to have T. Higgins on this roster, do you allow him to hit the open market? And the money that you would give him to keep him in Cincinnati, are you better served spending that on the defensive side of the ball, taking a tick of a step back on offense to allow yourself to be better on defense going into 2025?
Let's go from the AFC North to the NFC North, and we're talking about the Bears because there were certainly high expectations for them with Caleb Williams, and not only Caleb Williams himself, but the kind of situation that he was being put in, the pieces that were around him for a rookie quarterback. Will, how do you like their chances of going to the Super Bowl next season with Ben Johnson as their new head coach?
A lot better than I have in the years past. I mean, I was sort of, bearish on the Bears, for lack of a better phrase, last season. Rookie quarterback, greatest situation he's ever been put in, all of that stuff. I mean, you needed some offensive help in terms of the coaching, and they went out and got it with Ben Johnson. I mean, this is a big plus. Not only are you adding Ben Johnson, who put together an incredible offense with the Lions, but you're taking away from the Lions, who also lost Aaron Glenn. So I think it's reasonable to assume that the division could get a little bit easier in that regard, with the top dog there losing two coordinators. And for the Bears, they just need Caleb to take a leap. They have to improve the offensive line. That's a massive issue. Caleb Williams led the league in sacks last year. And I do worry a little bit about the defense here for Chicago, because we saw after Matt Eberflus was fired that the defense took a big step back during the season. And that should be a concern. So the defense needs to improve, get back to about average. And then we need to see some of this fun stuff, the fake trips, the end arounds, the passes from offensive linemen, the running back throwing passes, and more importantly, Caleb Williams developing in a way that Jared Goff did in that Ben Johnson offense. If that happens, the Bears are absolutely a fringe wild card team, but I think there's a little more that needs to be done than maybe meets the eye here with Chicago.
There were such high expectations over there. There's always high expectations when you look at the Dolphins, and you have this fan base that's hungry for even a playoff win, much less than a Super Bowl. I mean, they just want to get something. When you look at that division, the upcoming schedule, Tua's health, Tyler, how difficult will their pathway be to a Super Bowl next season?
Well, yeah, I mean, you look at that entire conference, it's a quarterback gauntlet. I mean, of course, we just saw Jalen Hurts in the NFC win the Super Bowl, but you still in the AFC have Joe Burrow, Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen in that division, Lamar Jackson. It is going to be really tough for the Miami Dolphins, but it all starts with the health of Tua Tagovailoa. When he was on the field this season, they were 6-5, above 500, but barely. But more importantly, they averaged 24 points per game. You look at all the other quarterbacks that they were able to start, whether it was Snoop Huntley or Skylar Thompson, it was at least 10 points fewer across the board. It was pretty abysmal. And you look at the individual splits like Devon Achane or Tyreek Hill, with and without Tua Tagovailoa, it was a massive drop-off. So having him healthy for an entire season, of course, is going to make them a little bit more competitive in 2025. And you look at that defense, though, I think it kind of went underrated a little bit, how good they were last season in third down and in red zone efficiency, actually better than the Super Bowl champion Philadelphia Eagles. So if you're telling me you're getting even remotely close to what was a top 5, top 10 defense in the NFL in the Miami Dolphins, and Tua stays healthy, that's going to be a sneaky competitive team in the AFC.
All right, another week, another time that we're talking about the Cowboys not in the Super Bowl.
Jeez.
Yeah, Jenny, we know this well. Your husband, my fiance, diehard Cowboys fans. It's rough. They have a new head coach. We have Dak coming off an injury. Will, talent is never the issue, but showing up in the playoffs is. So talk to the Dallas Cowboys fan base and tell them what you think about Dallas being in the mix for a Super Bowl next season.
I mean, look, Jerry Jones came out and said he was shocked that the Cowboys weren't playing in the Super Bowl this year. It's like, hey, buddy, you're the only one on planet Earth who is surprised that the Cowboys aren't in the playoffs. Then you let Mike McCarthy walk. In the Super Bowl. Let me channel my inner Jim Morris Sr. and say, playoffs. Why are we talking about the Cowboys in the playoffs? This team got worse at the head coaching position. I like Brian Schottenheimer, but I mean, he just doesn't have any experience relative to Mike McCarthy. And the offensive line is debilitated with attrition and age. And then the defense fell off a cliff again when Dan Quinn left. Why are we talking about this team being in the playoffs? Didn't you talk about 500 first?
Yeah, so we're not even talking about them in the Super Bowl. We shouldn't even be talking about them in the playoffs just yet, according to Brinson. So we're going to move on, and we're going to talk about the Seahawks, because they ended the season 10-7.
Yeah.
What did you just say?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Love it. Back to the Seahawks. 10-7. Missed the playoffs. That's how crazy the NFC West was. Will, when you're looking at Seattle, what the season they're coming off of, how do they stack up in that division and beyond to maybe get to Super Bowl 60?
Just just to pull back the curtain a little bit, producer Jack wanted to talk about the playoffs for the Cowboys. I said it's silly. The Seahawks are a much better team. I mean, I think you could argue that the quarterback position is relatively equal, unless Dak is going to have some magical MVP season under his old offensive coordinator. I think the offensive line can improve here in Seattle, and the defense, with Mike McDonald. I mean, this is a defense that was really, really good for stretches at times last season. I think Geno Smith, with the weapons he has, and maybe if we see the Rams sort of take a step back, they're trading Cooper Kupp. The 49ers again need to stay healthy. And this is a division the Seahawks can go out and win. I think that it's really being undersold how good a team the Seahawks can be relative to their performance last year. I would much rather bet on the Seahawks to make the playoffs than the Cowboys.
We're going to talk about the Falcons now, as Brad Nessler calls them, the Falcones, another team with high hopes after landing Kirk Cousins. Always loved getting a good Falcones update this season. Yeah. So Kirk obviously benched towards the end of the season for Michael Penix Jr. How does this shake out in a pretty winnable division, Tyler?
Yeah, and I think that's it, too. The avenue for the Atlanta Falcons is probably one of the easiest out of all the teams that we're talking about here to actually get into the postseason as a division champion, host a playoff game. So there's a path there. And for me, it starts with Michael Penix Jr. going into year 2. I thought he looked fantastic in the final stretches of the season once he got the starting job from Kirk Cousins. The numbers aren't really there to support it, but if you go by the eye test, there was a lot of drops. He looked the part of a starting quarterback in the NFL. I'm really excited to see now a full off season as knowing that you are the starter, you're the guy, quote unquote, going into 2025. Really curious to see how he works with an offense that's just absolutely loaded. Drake London, Bijan Robinson, good offensive line. Really excited to see how that goes. But if this team's going to do anything serious, they have to fix this defense. Across the board, it was just god awful. Bottom third in the NFL in every meaningful statistical category. To me, if we're talking about how does this team get into a Super Bowl, they have to make a seismic move. To me, this is a Myles Garrett team that should be on the watch. If they're able to get a talent like that and really transform the defense with a player like that, a talent like that rushing the passer, they could make some noise in the NFC.
I just want to say for our producer, Jack, who is a Bucs fan, he keeps coming in my ear every time I keep calling the NFC South a winnable division by saying, hey, the Bucs have won it 4 straight. I just want to remind him that Liam Cohen is no longer there, and he is now the head coach of the Jacksonville Jaguars. So I'm expecting a regression for Baker. Doesn't matter.
Jack is not giving up.
They won the first. He was there for the last one.
The people at home cannot hear what Jack's saying.
Jack said he was there for the first 3. He was not, obviously. So it doesn't matter. I just want to remind him that he's salty that his OC is now going to go win Super Bowls in Jacksonville, and I digress. Brinson, Tyler, we certainly appreciate it. Stay locked into CBS Sports HQ. News, highlights, scores, healthy debates, dogs rolling on beds. We have all the things. It's all here, and it's all for free.